The storm had chewed the ridge since sundown, gnawing the sky into a bruise. Wind came down the draw with the smell of wet iron. Eli Maddox led his bay gelding by the reins, hat brim slick with rain, coat heavy as a soaked quilt. The lantern in his fist guttered and flared. His toe struck a body lying half in the creek. He crouched. The man had the washed-out look of desert casualties, skin like tallow, mouth full of mud, eyes showing a sliver of white. No papers. No brand on the saddle. No name. Just a scorpion tattoo tucked under the ribs. Warm enough to be recent, and the rain would wipe the ground clean. Eli had seen men left for coyotes. He had also promised his ma that a man's last day should have a proper ending. "Come on, stranger," he said. He hauled the weight across the saddle and led the horse toward the hill the God-fearing called Penance. Thunder walked the high country. Lightning stitched raw seams between cloud and earth. Eli had buried a brother once, a friend twice, and himself, in rumor, more times than he could count. Burying an outlaw he didn't know felt like paying a debt he couldn't name. At the shoulder of the hill he dug. The shovel bit sparks out of stone. Rain tapped his hat. When the hole was a gentleman's depth, Eli knelt to settle the man in the earth. That was when he found the locket. A small round thing on a chain, smooth as a river stone and light as a lie. He thumbed it open. No picture, no lock of hair, no saint. Just polished emptiness and a faint smear, as if a thumb had rubbed away whatever belonged there. The hinge squeaked. Eli clicked it shut. Secrets were like snakes. Stare too long and you learned how they bit. "You got no name," he told the man, "but you got a place." He pulled the blanket over the face. With a few quiet words no one else would hear, he shoveled rocky dirt back. First on the man's chest, then his throat, then the blanket, until the shape of him sank into the hill. A flat stone for a marker, another beside it. The creek fretted below. Somewhere a dog barked once and quit. The gelding's ears were set forward hard enough to cut rain. "What is it, old boy?" Eli asked, following the stare. A line on the ridge had not been there when he started digging, a darker stripe in the dark. He took it for a lightning-blasted snag until the wind shifted and the outline changed. Two uprights with a crossbeam, black against the bruised sky. A gallows silhouette where the hill eased toward town. Gallows Bend hadn't kept a hanging tree for years, not since Sheriff Abel Crow made justice ride on paper instead of rope. But folks still kept the old words for nights like this. Somebody had set lumber on this hill for more than weather. Eli slid the shovel through no knot yet tied. "Who did you expect?" he asked the storm. Light hit the post and threw wet glints. A scrap of cloth clung where beam met upright, a nail hammered in crooked, a dribble of pitch like black tears. And there, knife marks. Not the law's neat hand, not a carpenter's. Careless strokes, hurried and mean. The beginnings of a name. Two lines that could be an E, another that hunched like an L. He could pretend he hadn't seen it. Ride down, fetch Crow, let the sheriff do the seeing. But something in the empty locket ticked like a watch with no clock. The stranger had gone into the earth with care. This beam waited with appetite. Eli didn't like to see a table set without asking who was expected to eat. Lightning licked the ridge, white enough to stain the eye. In that breath-long daylight, he saw everything in hard relief. The flat stones behind him, the rope snaking from the beam, the iron band seamed with rust, and the cuts resolving into letters his mother taught him by lamplight. E-L-I. Thunder shoved the hill. The lantern swung and threw wild shadows that wore his hat. He didn't run. He set the lantern down, careful as laying a sleeping child, and touched the carving. The letters were shallow, fresh work, Maybe within the hour. Not funny, he told the dark. The gelding stamped and tossed its head. The rope, teased by wind, whispered along the beam like something practicing a noose. Eli drew a slow breath and let it weigh every mistake that brought him here, none of which included burying a stranger. The grave behind him said a man ought to be remembered. The beam before him said a man could be predicted. If you were riding with him, would you go for the sheriff's lantern? Or carve the rest and dare the hill to finish? Leave a sign in the dust. We'll see who this Gallows is waiting for. Dawn limped in on bad boots. The storm left ruts, puddles, and a taste of tin. Eli Maddox rode down from Penance Hill with mud to the stirrups, and the grave behind him tamped flat. He meant to tell Sheriff Abel Crow about the lumber on the ridge, meant to, until he saw the crowd. Half the town had gathered where Main Street pitched toward the ridge. On the new Gallows, someone had finished what the night began. The name cut there wasn't just Eli anymore. It was 2 words, deep and deliberate. Eli Maddox. Pitch darkened the cuts. A noose hung beside them, fresh hemp swollen by rain. Eli felt people studying his face, measuring how a man took seeing himself written on a beam. "There it is," someone breathed. "Hanging trees picked." "It ain't a tree," Sheriff Crow said, pushing through. "And nothing picks. People do." Deacon Silas Thorne arrived with a Bible, held like a legal writ. "Sometimes the Lord uses lumber," he told the crowd, touching the name as if testing a brand. "A gallows speaks ahead of the magistrate." "It ain't a pulpit either," Crow said. He looked at Eli. "You see it put up?" "It wasn't there when I started digging," Eli said. "By lightning I saw the first letters. That's all." "Digging what?" Thorne asked. "A hole?" "A grave," Eli said. "For a man half drowned in the creek. No brand on his saddle, scorpion tattoo, no name." A murmur ran through the circle. Old superstitions woke like cold dogs. Thorne smiled into that sound as if it were his choir. "You buried a nameless outlaw," he said. "Come morning the Lord wrote your name beside him. A conscience knows its own handwriting." Eli didn't flinch. "I carried a man so coyotes wouldn't. If your Lord can't tell the difference, he ain't the one my mother talked to." June Avery shouldered in beside the sheriff, braid rain dark, hem rhymed with clay. She ran the remount station and knew which men lied at the counter. She handed Crow a tin mug that smelled of chicory. "Drink this before you say the next sensible thing," she said, then flicked Eli a look that held warning and a private joke. "Maddox." "June." He tipped his hat. She kept her voice even. "At first light I walked fence, saw a sign up on Penance, not shoe sign, boot sign. Whoever finished that name came from the north slope, stepped on rock to leave little. Then he stood and watched the graves a while." She left the plural hanging. Eli had said only 1 stone. June's eyes told him she knew that. Thorne lifted his Bible. "Sheriff, order wants a shepherd. Let the signs stand. Let the named man present himself. The innocent fear not the light." "Man names me on a murder machine and I'm supposed to come running?" Eli said. "That's not light, Deacon. That's a lantern behind somebody's back." Crow snapped his finger, stalled at the column of townsfolk who wouldn't help and wouldn't move. Eli set his palm over the letters. The cuts were too clean for a pocket knife, as if made by steel guides. He pictured somebody squatting in the rain, unhurried, waiting to see him read it. June touched his sleeve. "You dropped something." She had the locket, the same one from the dead man. Rain slicked the brass. It clicked when it hit the ground. Eli took it back. It felt different, warmer, heavier by a whisper. He thumbed it open. Same emptiness smiled up. Only this time the hinge didn't stop where it ought to. June pinched the rim with a nail and twisted. The inner face turned a quarter and popped like a stuck button. A wafer-thin slip of paper slid out, wet and nearly transparent. In the light, it showed a stamp of two shapes. A crosscut, saw like a grin, and above it, a double-bit axe. Between them, a line. THU, midnight, no lanterns. June blew across it. The ink bled a little, then held. Crosscut, she said. Old sawmill at the bend, where cottonwoods take the creek. Burned 3 summers back. Boys call it the crosscut mill. Thorne leaned in, pious curiosity dragging his feet. Evidence of conspiracy, he murmured. You carry messages for the dead now, Maddox? I carry what I find, Eli said. The man I buried was headed for a Thursday meeting in the dark. Somebody didn't want him written down. Somebody did want me written up. He nodded at the beam. Crow rubbed the stubble under his jaw. All right, slow road, not the cliff. 2 men stay on this lumber. Another pair watches your place, Eli. June, keep that scrap dry. June tucked the paper into the locket and rolled the chain twice around her palm. Dry is the one thing this town can't manage, she said. Wind came up, pulling at shawls and the sermon both. Somewhere a telegraph tapped a nervous code. The rope whispered. Eli cinched his coat and felt the morning stare through the cut letters like eye holes. If a name on a beam can point the way, the locket just drew a map. The old crosscut mill had burned, but ash remembers footprints. Meet you there, if you can stomach what the sawdust keeps. By noon, the storm had limped off toward the buttes, leaving the country rinsed and mean. Eli Maddox and June Avery followed the north trace to the old crosscut mill, a black rib cage at the bend, charred beams, slumped rafters, rails twisted like iron vines. The creek worried its banks under alder roots. Step where nails don't talk, June said. Men who work wood forget what their feet confess. They tied off and went inside. Soot made the light granular. Each breath tasted burned. In a drift of ash, Eli pinched yellow grains, tacky as candy. Rosin, he said. Or ink for rain, June said. Behind a fallen beam, a leather roll of chisels, a thin cold chisel like a scratch knife, 3 iron guides shaped to letters, and a coffee can of black syrup that would shine on wood through a downpour. Templates, June murmured. Quick work when the sky won't wait. No carpenter builds gallows for a hobby, Eli said. June levered up a flooring plank. A ledger lay in oilcloth, edges singed, pages waffled. A neat hand ruled. Thursday, midnight, no lanterns. Not men's names. Businesses with sums. Down the right margin, paid. Safe. Below that, refused, mark. On the title page, Committee for Order, Regulators. On the back, signs make men remember. A tax with a sermon, June said. Pay and keep your windows. Refuse and see your name where every eye must pass. Somebody ran this town on fear and lumber, Eli said. Somebody in a black coat, she answered, meaning Thorne. The horses warned them first with a snort that asked a question. Sound moved sideways in burned places. It came thin and far, then near. A loop flopped over the doorway and cinched the jamb. Ash sifted down. A man slid the line and landed soft. Morning, sinners, he drawled. Patched vest, 1 thumb gone. 2 more men behind. Out in the yard, 3 mounts and a 4th ember moving with a pipe. Miss Avery, the thumb-poor one tipped his hat. Maddox. Eli didn't touch his colt. Numbers would finish this. You boys rebuild mills on off days? We keep a timetable, the man said. Mr. Thorne likes things regular. We saw regular on the ridge, June said, carbine coming up. Back up. Or what? He smiled. You'll shoot 1 and leave 5? Eli looked past him as if help had just arrived. Half the yard turned. He stepped into the space that made, smacked the man's wrist hard enough to teach old Bone a new trick, and shoved June into cover. The next minute went like dice over a saloon floor, random and mean. June fired. Ash bloomed. An axe shaved Eli's coat. A rope hissed. He ducked under a beam that had outlived hotter days. They ran the mill. Hauled. "Next time," she said. "Count on it," he said. The loop found him from above. Not a cowboy's snare. A clean circle dropped from rafters, tightening across his collarbones. He hit a beam back first. Little bells went off behind his eyes. Hands took his wrists, quick and professional. Men who worked cattle had learned on cattle first. "Alive," the missing thumb man called. "Mr. Thorne prefers him breathing." June went at the tangle with her knife. A heel knocked it free. Two men pinned her neat as a deer under a hoop net. The loop breathed against Eli's throat. He made his breath small as mouse ribs and still paid more air than he had money for. They marched him out with the rope's tail in the enforcer's hand and June between two others. Clouds stacked from the west like stovewood. Heat left the day. Below, Gallows Bend laid out its board grid of want and hope. Folks saw the procession and did what folks do, made a lane and pretended it wasn't for them. Deacon Silas Thorne waited on the ridge like a host. Bible tucked in his arm, hair neat under a plain band hat. He looked washed and rested. He glanced at the rope, at Eli, at the mud lathering June's dress, and nodded like a butcher receiving beef on time. "Mr. Maddox, Miss Avery, you found our meeting place." "We found your tithe sheet," Eli said, voice sanded by fiber and pride. "You call it order. I call it rent on fear. Names on beams do what sermons fail to," Thorne said. His palms stroked the crossbeam as owners touch a good horse. "Let us see what yours turns." They had worked fast. Uprights braced, crossbeam trued, noose tied with a knot somebody loved. Pitch painted the letters so dark they looked burned in. The church drum tried a slow beat. They set Eli on a box. The world narrowed to wood grain, rope hairs, June's breath a few yards off, and the heat in Thorne's eyes when power ran through him. The first drop of rain struck his cheek and ran cold to his mouth. He tasted pitch and thunder. The loop settled under his jaw like a hand practicing a hold. One more shove and the hill decides. Lesson or miracle. If you stood there, which way would you lean? The drum kept a slow hunger. Rain turned faces to blurs. Eli stood on the box and felt the noose own his balance. June, mud to the knees, watched the knot like a gambler counting odds. Wind, crowd, the pin, hands on guns. Sheriff Abel Crow raised both palms. "We will not hang a man on a rumor carved with a chisel. Step back from the lever." Deacon Silas Thorne tipped his Bible so rain ran off. "Rumor? The Lord's handwriting on timber? Mr. Maddox buried a nameless outlaw against the rules. He knows their meeting house. He carries their token." His eyes flicked to June's fist, where the locket chain cut her skin. "Let order be order." "Order isn't a tithe jar with a noose for a lid," June said. "Since you love a book so much, Deacon, read this one." She flung the oilcloth bundle into the wet. Crow stooped fast. June peeled back the cover. "Thursday, midnight, no lanterns. Paid, safe. Refused, mark. Names that paid to stay out of your sermons." He scanned a page. "This ledger is years old." "And still warm," June said. "Because the hand didn't change, just learned pitch and iron guides." She jabbed at the gallows. "Signs make men remember. Your words, your cut, your paint." Thorne didn't blink. "A ledger keeps men honest. A ledger keeps men paying," Crow said. He lifted the book so Thorne could see his own name where the spine wrinkled and the ink bled. Thorne, steward, 10%. "Steward to what?" "To peace," Thorne said. Eli breathed around the knot. Then why does the rope taste like fear? Lightning opened the world to bones. Pitch on the letters flashed. The noose gleamed. Thunder kicked the hill. Crow slid the ledger under his coat. Cut him down. Thumb, the enforcer with a missing digit, laid a hand on the lever. Mr. Thorne? Hold, Thorne said. Mr. Maddox can show innocence by standing in light. He lifted a hand. Lord, choose. Or lightning can choose a liar, June said. Rain thickened, rattling the rope like seeds in a gourd. Eli worked his wrists, found only the patience of men who learned on cattle and profited on wood. The box shifted. The town's breath leaned toward the moment, like wheat when a train passes. Abel, page 3, bottom line, June called. Crow tore the ledger back out. He read for all faces. Mark, Eli Maddox, refused. Mark, June Avery, refused. Wind changed, smelling of cut pine. Eli felt the knot settle and something like a cat's paw pass over the beam. The strike didn't come from heaven first. It came from the telegraph wire that stitched the ridge to town. Lightning climbed that black string, hit the iron band, and walked it in blue fire. Sparks breathing. June moved into the wild where gaps live. She dove for the pin. A boot met her shoulder. She slid, came up with mud in her teeth, spat, and laughed because it meant she still had a mouth. Her knife was gone. Her hands were not. Abel, she shouted. Crow slammed his shoulder into Thorne. The Bible flew, the ledger skidded. A deputy swung for June. She ducked and felt his knuckles pass like a bee. She jammed her fingers between beam and pin and screamed in 2 languages. One the town understood, one only rope knew. Something gave. The trap didn't fall. The pin didn't pull. The world drew breath and held it. Lightning came down the old way. Cloud to tree, to man, to earth. It hit the beam. Blue ran along the letters, pitch boiled. The carved strokes swelled with light. Elimaddox. Then another stroke, thin as a wet hair, drew itself beside the X. Not a carpenter's cut, not a knife's. A scorch writing in sap and smoke. J. June saw it first. Others saw glow and smoke and rope fibers coming apart. She saw the letter as if it had been there, waiting on a spark to find its path. Abel, she whispered. Small for the size of what she named, it's writing another one. Crow got a knee under him. Thorn scrambled like a beetle on its back. Thumb reached for the lever again, because men in his trade repeat what they know. June threw her weight into the brace, teeth bared. The pin groaned. The knot hissed. Rain hammered the hill like a drum hurrying time. The J lengthened. A curve teased itself into being, the start of a U. Pitch popped. The noose smoked through and parted in one lazy thread. Eli fell to his knees with the rope coiled like a dead snake around his shoulders. The crowd exhaled as one and didn't know what the sound meant. Miracle? Lesson. Accident. Sign. If you were on that ridge, your eyes would go where June's did, to the letter that hadn't finished. The wood chose a path, the sky traced it. Who set the first line? Leave your guess in the dust. The hill is listening. Dawn came up slow. The hill smelled of pitch and wet rope. Eli Maddox knelt with the noose slack on his shoulders. June reached him before the crowd decided what it had seen. You breathin'? Arguing with it, he said. Where's Thorne? Salt works, Sheriff Abel Crow said, levering up with the ledger hugged like a fragile child. Regulators with him. The beam had cooled to a dark sheen. Eli Maddox still glistened with pitch. Beneath the X, a new scorch had lengthened unseen. J.U. It's not finished, June said. Neither is he, Eli answered. Crow snapped orders. 2 deputies with me, hold the hill, coil the rope, gouse the pitch. Take the long lantern, June said. Those mines keep bad air. She flashed the locket chain wound twice around her wrist. The paper stamped with saw and axe was there, smeared but legible. Behind it, heat had warped an inner ring. Her nail found a seam. The back plate turned. A thin square slipped free, stuck by old resin. Half a photograph, edge charred. A younger Thorne stood shoulder to shoulder with another man, both grimed and proud. The other wore a scorpion tattoo under the ribs. Behind them, cross-cut mill, under new stewardship. Steward, Crow read. He didn't just bless lumber, he owned it. Owned the fear it bought, Eli said. Riders shouted from the flats. Crow slid the photo into the ledger. No more sermons, we end this at the salt works. Not you, Eli said. Me. Us, June said. They cut the mule trail. Salt licked the wind. The white flats opened, empty, bright, nowhere to hide but glare. The salt works had been a civic wish before drought made wishes brittle. Leaning sheds, rusted pans, a windmill with a broken tune. Shafts dropped where brine had swallowed tools and men. Fresh prints angled toward the largest shed. June eased the door. It complained. Eli slid into dim air already tired of being breathed. Boards clicked under his weight. The long lantern drew a thin ribbon of light. Mr. Maddox, Thorne called from the back. You came where men get cleaned. Salt strips everything extra. Step careful. Some ground looks like ground and is not. Like your book, June said. Thumb moved from the gloom with a shotgun low. Eli kept his hands where eyes could see them. You ran a ledger on folks, Eli said. Paid tuition, Crow said. Something creaked that shouldn't. The salted floor by the tank gave under June's heel. She flung her weight back. Thorne didn't. The crust folded. He dropped in a cough of salt dust, pistol skittering. The tank groaning. Eli dove. Fingers found linen and collar. June's hands found the belt. Together, they held up a man who had held a rope over them. Deputies slid a plank under him. Crow cuffed both wrists. When they hauled, brine came too, cold, stinging, cleansing nothing, except the lie that men don't fall. They led him out under a sky trying to be blue. The hill waited like a jury. People watched at a distance. Eli reached Penance Hill before the town. The grave he'd made had been opened as politely as he'd closed it. Blanket folded, stones set aside. Rain-clean earth showed a hollow where a body had been and the print of a knee. Coyotes? June asked, though both knew coyotes don't fold blankets. Eli opened the locket and let the sun look in. The little photograph had come clean from a hard place. The empty circle on the first face glinted like a coin rubbed smooth. Maybe a man loved by no one is still loved by something, he said. They climbed to the beam. The name stood, Eli Maddox. Below it, the scorch had finished, spelling a single word that thinned June's mouth. June. You gonna ride? She asked. I was, he said, before I learned how lumber can write. They watched the town sort itself, some ashamed, some relieved, some revising the tale. Crow posted deputies on the gallows like nailing a roof before wind. Eli set his palm on the letters. He took out his knife and did nothing. "We pull this down," he said. "Not because it bears my name, because it learned yours." June nodded. "Then we find the hands that taught it. Wood keeps a memory if you know how to ask. If you were there for the last look, you'd see what we saw. The names, the sap, the way a gallows leans when a town remembers itself. Tell me who did the carving. Men, storm, or the part of a place that grows a conscience while you sleep. Leave your answer in the dust. The hill is listening."